health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Welcome to the Accelerated Health TV and Radio Show. I'm your host, Sara Banta. I'm a wife, a busy mom of 3, and the founder of the cutting edge and award-winning supplement brand Accelerated Health Products. This podcast is more than just a source of information. It's community for you and those looking to optimize their health. I release new episodes live every Monday and Tuesday and a bonus one on Thursday. So remember to subscribe and add to your playlist so you never miss a show. And join my free health group coaching on Telegram. There's no downside. I answer your questions that pop up when you're listening to these podcasts. The details can be found on my website at sarabantahealth.com. My goal is to reach everyone who needs me and not those that don't with my message of healing. So help me with this goal. Share this podcast with a few of your friends or loved ones, and together we can empower each other, especially this one, as everybody, it seems like, is suffering from thyroid issues. And we have the thyroid fixer doctor back, Amie Hornaman, one of my favorite people in the entire world, on and off screen. Welcome, Amie. How are you today?
Hi, Sara. It's so good to be with you again. I love talking to your audience. It's so fun.
And likewise. And they always love us together. I always get emails saying, I saw you on Amy's show. I saw Amie on your show. And it's so much
like
fun.
A power couple, right?
I know. Well, I think we balance each other really well. Things that I know a little bit more than you, and you definitely have more knowledge in other areas than I do. And today is one of those topics, and I want to go through the thyroid hormones. Mm-hmm. We get these blood panels done, and I can't tell you how many people come to me and say, Sara, especially in the last year, I've gained weight. I don't know where it's come from. My doctor says my thyroid's fine. And I just did a round of buying blood tests for me, my 2 daughters, my son, and I did them a couple months ago for my husband. And when you go in to buy these tests, it's on the full panel, the full, most comprehensive panel that you're paying $400+ They only test TSH. They're not even giving you all of the thyroid hormones to test in the full panel that you're paying so much money for. And so you're getting this feeling like, well, this is my total health picture, but the thyroid's the master endocrine gland, affects everything else. So really, it's not. You got to look at everything. So I want to first, let's go through all of the hormones, and the ones that mean the most, the ones that could be the hidden ones that are hurting us and we don't even understand why, and then how they affect all of our other hormones like insulin, our liver enzymes, our progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. Everything's related. So there we go. I'm going to start with the thyroid hormones.
Yeah, we need like a big whiteboard, right? Because there's so many correlations that we can make with each hormone and how they tie and affect each other. But let's start with thyroid. Honestly, I'm about ready to revamp my optimal lab range sheet, because on there, I think a lot of people get confused because I do have free T4 on there and I have TSH. Now, TSH, you're going to get that tested every single time. We want it below a 2. But a lot of people still ask me, and I mean, you know this, Sara, it doesn't matter how many times you say something, there's somebody new listening every day. So I get this question ongoing. My doctor's freaking out over my low TSH. She wants to pull back on my thyroid medication, reduce my T3, reduce my armor. And, that's just a lack of understanding of how the thyroid gland actually works and signals in the body. Whenever you're on any kind of T3, that TSH can go down. So I have come to the point where once I start working with someone and treating them, almost don't even test TSH anymore. That way nobody sees it, nobody freaks out, don't care. Then we move on to free T4, which
before you move on,
Yeah.
a high TSH that's out of range, I get this a lot, is from too much iodine. I say too much iodine because I don't believe that you can really get too much of the right iodine, the acceleradine iodine, but temporarily it will make the TSH go high because there are thyroid hormone receptor sites on every cell in the body. So all of a sudden the iodine wakes up the thyroid and the pituitary says, hey, wait a second, we need iodine for every cell, not just the thyroid. Let's wake it up, make sure we are saturated, and then it will come back down. And we're going to show a blood test in a minute that that is the case.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, if you're not on iodine, your TSH is high, you have hypothyroidism. If you are on iodine and your TSH is high, that's when the other markers become so vital. You have to move on and look at where those other markers are. And I'm going to really break it down simply for you. The only two that you absolutely must get every time and must look at every time is the free T3 and the reverse T3. In fact, I don't even care if you get your antibodies tested every time. Listen, if we know you have Hashimoto's, we know you have Hashimoto's. Now, if you were coming up with a 0 in Hashimoto's, go ahead and retest those antibodies because those can come back as false negatives quite often. But the main two thyroid hormone tests, free T3, reverse T3. If those two are off, it doesn't matter what the rest is doing. Now, the rest, I look at free T4 because quite honestly, if free T4 is high or even higher in the normal standard lab value range, and I can't even tell you how many times this has happened. I'll be going through someone's labs and I'll see that high free T4 and I go, I bet this person has a high reverse T3. And then I scroll, boom, there it is, reverse T3 of a 19. Because when a person is on too much T4, that is a huge pusher to reverse T3. And most of us don't convert well. I know we're going to talk more deeply about reverse T3, but there's so many issues that come into play with conversion. Most of us don't convert well. So what do conventional doctors do? Just give more T4, more T4, more T4. So if you're out there and you've been on Levo or Synthroid and you've been changed from 50 micrograms to 75 micrograms to 88 micrograms to 112 micrograms to 125 micrograms because you keep going in saying that you don't feel better, so your doctor keeps giving you T4, but they're not testing your reverse T3, they could be doing you a disservice. And guess what? That's probably why you feel worse. So free T3, reverse T3 are the two most important thyroid hormones that we can test. And then I want to take a pause and let you speak because I've been speaking a lot, and then we can go into the other hormones.
Real quick with T4, say you're increasing, and you do have a conversion problem, but maybe you're able to get a little more free T3 every time you increase and more reverse T3. So they're both increasing as you increase T4. Do you see that? Or do you typically see the free T3 is not changing and just reverse T3 is going up?
It depends on the person. And I'm so glad you asked that because this is the perfect example of why the thyroid gland is nuanced. So there's a variety of, just like you said, different scenarios that we can see. And my God, I've looked at so many sets of labs, so the thyroid labs, I can give you all of them. So there is one scenario where, let's say conventional doctors giving more T4, and we test and we see that, okay, free T3 went from a 2.4 and now it's a 3.2 or a 3.5 or even a 3.7. And you look and you go, okay, well, this is okay. But what's the reverse T3? And then you go over to the reverse and you see that it's, an 18, 19, 22. What that picture is there's so much reverse T3 in the body. Now, remember, reverse T3 is the anti-thyroid hormone. So, Sarah, you talked about bromine and fluoride competing at the receptor site for iodine. Think of this kind of the same way. Reverse T3 is competing at the receptor site for free T3. If you have too much reverse T3, it is blocking you at the cell receptor site from that T3 hormone attaching and turning that lock and key mechanism to turn on that cell, to give you a metabolism, to grow your hair, to light up your brain, whatever it is. So oftentimes we can see almost too much T3 or a really pretty, like a really optimal where you would go, all right, this person must be feeling great. until you go over here and look at their reverse T3. And then you go, no, they're not feeling great because their body's in survival mode, because none of that T3 that is being picked up in the blood. Yes, it's in the blood. It is in the blood. And that's why when we do that serum test, we're getting a really nice number, but it's not getting to the cell. Reverse is way too high, blocking it. Now, you also might have a scenario where somebody has a very low free T3 and elevated reverse T3. And that conversion is just, the conversion isn't happening. None of the T4 is going to T3. It's all going to reverse T3. And now you have the low free T3, elevated reverse T3 scenario where the person is walking around in survival mode. And that's the key part of this. If you're having kind of a hard time, because we're getting a little bit sciencey here, a little bit geeky, just remember, reverse T3 puts your body in survival mode. So you will hear from your conventional doctor, well, we only test that in a clinical setting. Meaning if you're laying there in the ICU or the ER fighting for your life, guess what? Your reverse T3 is going to be high, because our bodies are so brilliant that our bodies know that you don't have to burn fat, feel good, make any major decisions, grow your hair, or even poop when you're laying there fighting for your life. Here's the problem. If you're not in the hospital and you're walking around trying to do this life that we're in, raise 3 kids, be a businesswoman, go to work, clean the house, order some groceries from Instacart. I know, tough job, right? But still, we want to be functioning at a high functioning level every day. If our body's in survival mode, we're not going to be able to do that.
So is it, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Does stress cause reverse T3, or does the wrong conversion from taking too much T4 cause reverse T3 and then cause us to feel stress and cause the metabolic shutdown?
All of the above. Really, there's no way to tell which came first, honestly. So some people have a genetic SNP. It's the D101, D102. No 23andMe and DNA company do not test for this. This is a very specialized test. It used to only be in Europe, but I found a couple of companies here. Actually, my one health coach that does epigenetics has a full panel that tests for it. So I finally had mine tested after 20 some years of knowing that I'm T3 only and that I do not convert. And look, lo and behold, I have the genetic SNP that basically says you're probably not going to convert T4 to T3 very well. Okay, I figured that out a long time ago, but the genetics just confirm it. So there are genetic SNPs. There's low iodine. That's a major, major cause of reverse T3. Low magnesium, low vitamin D, low selenium, high cortisol, high insulin, estrogen dominance. I mean, it really, the list goes on and on. So when you, environmental toxins, underlying infections, I know we were like kind of brainstorming the other day of what could be going on with you and another client of yours with elevated reverse T3. So, you can go through all of those things, check the boxes. Do I have this? Do I have this? But then when it's all said and done, if you're going through all those boxes going, you know what? I don't. I'm not insulin resistant. I'm not estrogen dominant. I take my iodine. My vitamin D is perfect. I'm taking my mag every day. Like all of that, then it might just be number one, you're on too much T4 and not enough T3 that we have to change that ratio. Number two, you might need T3 only. And then number three, it might just be genetics.
So not talking about replacing a T4 medication, but if someone were just to stop it because say their profile is too much T4, high reverse T3, so there's not a good conversion, just by stopping it, not even supplementing with iodine, will they feel better because the reverse T3 is going to go down?
Well, initially, but the problem is, so most of the time when you have these T4 only people, they've been on that for a while. Their doctor put them on that 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. And now they have that negative feedback loop to their thyroid already kicked on. So you pull the T4, which initially will reduce the T3. Now, hopefully you're doing some other things at the same time. Stopping your thyroid medication is never good, even if you're not on the right kind. And let's say you're doing the right thing. You feel good for a while, but then eventually that's going to catch up because you have now, your own thyroid gland production is gone. You've been on T4 for that long, and stopping it is only going to make you crash. So there's kind of a fine line. Instead of stopping it, I would rather catch those people and add in some T3. So take the T4, hypothetical, let's say somebody's on 88 micrograms of T4. So, okay, let's bring that down to maybe 50, maybe even like 35, and let's add in some T3. So now we're lowering that T4 that converts to reverse, because the only thing that converts to reverse T3 is T4. That is it. There's no other hormone that converts to reverse T3. So we bring down the T4, we add in some T3. Now we've kind of changed that seesaw. We've changed the ratio a little bit. The T3 is coming in, and that will push down the reverse. And the T4 has been lowered, so less is converting to reverse. Really, I mean, if let's say, and I know we're going to get into some labs and values, if I have a patient that comes in with an elevated reverse T3, low free T3, and they're highly symptomatic, I'm giving them T3 only for a while. And then we'll add the T4 in, because that T3, pulling the T4 and adding the T3 in, will push down the reverse. Then we can start experimenting, putting the T4 back in, going, okay, here's some T4. How do you feel? Did you go hypo again in that week or 2 weeks that we added back in the T4? Yes. Oh, okay. Well, then pull it out again. Then just do T3 only for a little bit, and we'll try that again down the road, adding the T4 in. So sometimes it's a trial and error to find out what someone really needs.
So for me personally, we're not going to be showing my labs, but I feel great.
Right.
I feel good. I have energy. I don't need naps. I don't need alcohol. Yes, I love my cup of coffee in the morning, but I don't go for a cup number 2 or 3.
Right.
I feel good. On my labs, there were high liver enzymes, but there was also high reverse T3. My free T3 was in a good range. I mean, you said it was okay.
Yep.
So what does that mean? Why do I feel so good if my reverse T3 is high? And could it be viral? Yeah. Could it be something I was just exposed to? I did just go traveling. It was the day after 4th of July. I didn't drink that day, but I'm coming off of eating things on travel days that aren't normal, and doing things, being around people that I'm not normally around, that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, your reverse T3 was so fluky high that yes, it could be viral. Yes, it could be stress. It could also be a lab error. So we're going to have you redo that. But it absolutely could be a viral. So anytime your body, let's say you were exposed to any kind of viral load, that is enough to stress your body and to kick up reverse. Because think about it. If reverse T3 is there to save us when we're laying in the ICU or the ER, it certainly is going to kick up if we're fighting a viral infection. Again, body protection. What do we need to survive? What do we need to protect this body? Does this body need to be burning fat while it's fighting, COVID? No, it doesn't. Like, you just need to hunker down and fight that infection. So any kind of infection, whether you know it or not. I've also looked at labs where I've seen monocytes elevated, white blood cell count elevated. And I'm like, are you sick? They're like, well, I was fighting a little something when I went for the lab. I'm like, yeah, I can see it on here. So, whether you know it or not, or maybe it's just a sniffle, but in your body, it shows as this huge viral load that can push up reverse.
And on my test, normally my CRP number is 0. It was 1 something. So it was like, okay, something's going on that's not normal for me. So yeah, I definitely am going to be retesting. You mentioned estrogen dominance. With estrogen dominance, is it the thyroid hormones affecting the imbalance of progesterone and estrogen? I know we talk about a lot of things that cause estrogen dominance: a dirty liver, toxins, the food supply, the air, the fluoride, all of this stuff. But it can also be caused by low progesterone. Are the thyroid hormones affecting the estrogen progesterone balance, or is the estrogen dominance affect? It's like, again, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah. No, seriously, we need a Venn diagram for this. So Okay, so we know that progesterone increases the conversion of T4 to T3. Progesterone does so many good things. It actually helps lower our insulin, makes us more insulin sensitive, and it helps with conversion of T4 to T3. Now, when we're in that estrogen dominant state, what ends up happening is, and it's kind of, it's very unique how our body works. So we need estrogen to make progesterone receptor sites, but we need it in the right quantities. So when we have too much estrogen, it naturally suppresses our progesterone. So let's take a classic polycystic ovarian syndrome girl. And I don't know if your daughter has that or not, that's causing the E dominance. But if we look at polycystic ovarian syndrome, the classic presentation, no matter what the age, is low progesterone, estrogen dominance, androgen, possible dominance, sometimes maybe not. Usually insulin resistance tied to that. Why is insulin resistance tied to PCOS? Well, you have this androgen dominant state that can cause insulin resistance, but you also have that low progesterone state that can cause insulin resistance. So when estrogen is dominant, it's pushing down that very hormone that helps with conversion and that helps with lowering our insulin and making us more insulin sensitive. So those two things alone, you can see, oh, well, that's going to push up reverse T3, isn't it? On the flip side, we also need the right amount of estrogen for thyroid hormone production all around. So this is where we get into that term thyropause, which is becoming more and more popular and more, we'll say, brought to the forefront of women's minds now. A doctor asked me that the other day. He said, in women in menopause, let's say really over the age of 50, don't you find thyroid issues in like all of them? I'm like, you know what, about 99.9%, right? Because that's why we have that term thyropause. When estrogen starts to decline, really when all of our hormones start to decline, the thyroid gland doesn't have any help, doesn't have any support. It's like their entire support system just left. And yeah, thyroid gland just says, I really can't produce the right amount of T4 and T3 anymore. I can't convert this T4 to T3 anymore. The body is dying because it has no hormones. The thyroid gland just doesn't know what to do. And this is really a prime time for Hashimoto's to present itself, because we know any major hormonal shift can turn on that Hashimoto's switch. So yeah, I would say if you're over the age of 50, you probably have a thyroid problem. There's a 99.999% chance that you have a thyroid problem. And you're going to say, well, my doctor told me I was normal. Well, that's why we're here. I mean, that's why Sara and I are doing this, because you can't go by what your doctor says. You can't go by normal. You have to get all the testing done that we just talked about. But yeah, I mean, in that low estrogen state, now thyroid issues can occur. So it's all just, you see how it's just tied together. It's crazy.
Let's pull up the labs and show those real quick, because this person, I don't know if, can you see that, Amie?
Yeah, I have my monitor over here so I can see that. Yep.
Perfect. So this person has high TSH. Let's see here. Do we want to go to, are we on page 1? Let's go to page 3. So at the top, it has the lipid panel, A1C, T4, DHEA. This person has is supplementing with DHEA, hoping to get higher testosterone.
Okay, that's a whole other topic. That really doesn't work well. DHEA is not a strong enough pusher of testosterone. It's just going to push her into her to have too high of DHEA.
Okay. Now, will that affect her reverse T3? Because her reverse T3 is at a 17.
I've not seen any literature directly correlating elevated DHEA with elevated reverse T3. However, whenever I usually see an elevated DHEA, I first ask the question, are you taking DHEA? Because you got to figure that out. And then the second question is stress. Are you stressed? So I have had patients with an elevated DHEA that are not taking it. And then I see it and I go, okay, are you stressed out? And they're like, yeah, a lot happened in the last month or two. So in that case, then yes, a high DHEA would correlate to elevated reverse T3 because the person is so stressed out and it's pushing up their DHEA. It's almost like it's calling on the adrenals for help, and then the body just produces more DHEA to help with the adrenals. But in her case, since she's taking it, I would say no, that's not going to be the factor.
So you do see that her testosterone did increase from a 20 to a 36. It seems like the DHEA was not tested the first time.
Yeah.
So even though it is actually doing some good with the testosterone, you would not recommend supplementing with DHEA.
Well, she has to pull back now. That's way too high.
Yeah.
So now when she pulls back, the question is, did the testosterone drop? So does she need this crazy super physiologic dose of DHA just to get her testosterone up? So in this case, I would use hormone fixer or real testosterone. I mean,
no, and I told her and put her on the hormone fixer. So I take it every day. I love it. It's part of the reason that I feel great. So, okay. So we talked about her reverse T3 and she is on Armour, or she was. She is now stopping the Armour and she's going to, she's switching to the accelerated thyroid and the iodine. So we'll see what happens with that. Now her blood sugar A1C 5.6.
Okay, that could be contributing then to the reverse T3. Let's take a look at the next page. And I want to see if was her leptin's a 4. That's not bad. Was her insulin tested at all?
Yes, it was. I think it was a 5 point. So the next page shows the TSH at the top, T3 progesterone.
Yeah. Okay.
And insulin's 5.5, but it was a 4. So, and she said, I've been eating a lot more sugar.
So things are going up. We can see that trend with the A1C and the insulin. It's not a huge climb, but it's enough to say, okay, is that what is pushing up that reverse T3? And see, this is where it kind of becomes like peeling an onion and a little bit of a guessing game to find out what is driving up that reverse T3. So of course, you address diet, you do things to bring that level down. Obviously addressing any kind of hormonal imbalance. So the progesterone is a little bit low. I would like to see the progesterone higher for her because that's going to help with conversion. So that would be something else you could do. But here's the interesting thing. When you look at the total T3, now her free T3 was not tested, unfortunately, but her total T3 was. If there's not enough total, there's not going to be enough free. Her total plummeted from the last time she was tested, which is April, to now. And now she's just barely above the lower end of the reference range. She's coming in at 88. The reference range is 71 to 180. Now, I'm not saying that you go by the reference range, but obviously if you're at the low end of the reference range, that says something, because when conventional medicine almost flags you as low, that means you're really low, right? So yeah, she doesn't even have enough T3. So she's one of those that she was taking Armour. Armour is 80% T4, 20% T3. That 80% of T4 was doing nothing but pushing over to reverse T3. And it has been for a while. Her last reverse T3 was a 19. So even if her, we could say her A1C and insulin went up over the last 3 months, 4 months, whatever, it was high before. So she's on way too much T4. Her doctor has her dosed improperly. Yes, it's fantastic that she's on an NDT, but she's dosed improperly, too much T4. So what I would do, I would not pull the Armour. I would reduce the Armour and add in T3. Or she can go to your advanced thyroid, but I would still add in the T3. So she could pull the Armour, move to your thyroid, and then add in T3 a little bit.
And insulin, where do you like to see that?
Really below a 6 is what I say. So her insulin's still fine, but this is where you have to look at the trends. When someone's insulin is going up and the A1C is going up, like, let's catch it now. before it goes up any higher?
So what's interesting is in another client, a young client with horrific periods and menstrual cycles, progesterone's in the tank. She's an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been testing her blood sugar, which is really low, like waking up at a 75. She eats a balanced meal, it goes to an 85. So there's not huge spikes. Her insulin's over 11.
Huh.
And we have seen, and maybe this is what is causing it, that the spike protein is causing an over-exaggerated insulin response. Can you come up with another reason that would be, though, other than the spike protein, or do you see that?
What's her A1C?
5.6.
Okay. So there is something. So then I would say it's probably stress. So maybe a little bit of school stress. If she is an athlete, is she pushing herself too hard? Maybe not eating enough to supplement the energy output. And that's just a huge stressor on the body. Because remember, fasting is a stressor on the body. Exercise is a stressor on the body. So let's take this, a young, fit athlete who is probably pushing themselves a little bit past the envelope and not fueling themselves to equate their pushing themselves past the envelope.
Yeah.
Both of those things become a stressor. You go, well, she's not fasting. No, she's not fasting, but her body thinks she is,
right,
because she's not eating enough.
Right.
It could be that's actually pushing up the A1C and the insulin.
You guys, I've been saying stress without eating a morsel of chocolate kills the body.
Yes, it does.
It's tanking the progesterone. It's causing insulin to go up. And then what you're saying is exactly what's going on. There's stress from the sports, stress from school, stress from not feeling well every single month.
That
and
too.
Then the appetite is gone, but then there's stress that I'm not eating. But the body doesn't know that you're not meaning to not eat, right? So it says, well, you're starving yourself. So all of these things are disrupting all of the hormones.
Yeah.
And it's just, it really comes back to stress first and what that stress is doing to the body. Okay. So is there anything else on the blood test that you want to talk about? You mentioned one thing I wanted to come back to, vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Southern California. It is July. I lay in my backyard almost every day. I jump, I love the sun. I don't put on sunscreen, hit me. I don't care. I don't get sunburned. I love the sun. My vitamin D was low. This shows how hard it is to get the proper amount of vitamin D, and supplementing is almost essential for most everybody. So I just wanted to mention that because it's important for the thyroid hormones.
It is. And a lot of people have a genetic SNP as well, where they do not convert sunlight into vitamin D. So they have to supplement. And that's more prevalent than what you think, honestly, because I have plenty of patients that are like, I'm in the sun all the time. Yeah. I'm like, well, your vitamin D doesn't show it. So you're going to have to take it.
I was shocked because I literally, I cannot get more sun.
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to also mention, Dr. Brownstein, he was on your show and my show, and he confirmed that T4 could be a representation of 4 molecules of bromide and not even iodine. So you could get a false reading on your blood test. So
and that's why we don't even chase T4. We don't. Right. Don't try to get that T4 in the optimal range, because sometimes in doing that, you're pushing up your reverse T3. The only other thing I would point out on here is the antibodies. So again, this is one of those things I say all the time, cannot hurt to say it 10,000 times. Thyroid peroxidase, she's coming in at a 13. The reference range is 0 to 34. Her conventional doctor will tell her that she does not have Hashimoto's. Again, what is Hashimoto's? It's your body attacking your thyroid gland. So are we going to wait until she has 35 soldiers attacking her thyroid gland to officially give her the little Hashimoto's hat and she gets a label? No, she's got 13 soldiers attacking her thyroid gland. Her thyroid gland is under attack. and 13 can do as much damage as 35 in the long run over time. So we want to address the Hashimoto's now and say, okay, this person needs to go gluten-free. They need to reduce their stress. They need to sleep. They need to take black cumin seed oil. Like all those things can actually push Hashimoto's into remission, which will then further stop the destruction. Because the last thing you want to do is, okay, you're working on the reverse T3, you're working on bringing up her T3 levels, you're working on bringing down that TSH, but her thyroid gland is beaten up every day. And so it's just like, it's like you're filling up a bucket with a hole in it. Like it's just not going to work.
Right. Well, let's take down the labs, and I want to talk about T2 because you're saying that only T3 or only T4 can convert into reverse T3. T2 cannot have any negative side effects. Is that correct?
Correct. So T2 can grab an iodine molecule, which is why it's important to be taking your iodine every day. Grab an iodine molecule and become T3. Now, it's not going to become T3 to the point where it starts suppressing your TSH. We're not going to see that. I mean, we maybe have seen TSH go from, let's say, a 3 to a 2.5. You know, it might drop a little bit, but it's not going to suppress it to where your doctor will freak out. But it can become T3. But the only thing that can convert to reverse T3 is T4. So perfect example, myself. If I showed you my labs, I am T3 only, like I shared earlier. My free T4 is 0.04. Now you saw in the last set of labs that you had up that free T3 values normally are in the ones. You know, you could see somebody like with a 0.8, a 0.9, maybe a 1, a 1.0, 1.1. I'm a 0.04, meaning I have no T4 in my body at all, nothing. And my reverse T3 is indetectable. It is less than 5. It can't even be registered on the lab. Why is that? Because the only thing that converts to reverse T3 is T4. I'm not taking T4, and I definitely don't produce my own T4 anymore after years of Hashimoto's and years of medication. So, but I'm okay. I'm good. So that's the perfect example of why you do not chase a TSH or a T4 number. Oh, my TSH is 0.0007. It's non-existent as well. So my labs, I mean, I could easily give a heart attack to an endocrinologist if I showed them my labs. Like they would die on the spot. So, but you know, again, that's the nuanced beauty of thyroid treatment. You have to pair that up with each person and ask them how they're feeling, because that is going to change how you treat them.
And the person that we just looked at, she feels great. So that is, it's, you know, you want to, and I feel great. And that's what you want to go. Now there's a way to optimize and make things better, but really sit with yourself. You are your best doctor. But with the T2, what is it? What are the benefits? Are there any side effects? Can you overdose on it?
Yes. Okay. I love talking about T2 because I've been studying this for 15 years. So T2 is a thyroid metabolite. It's a thyroid hormone metabolite, and it actually has 30 years of studies behind it, but we're still not hearing enough about it in mainstream as a really potent tool for this obesity crisis that we're in right now in the United States. But it activates brown adipose tissue and literally turns up the dial on your resting metabolic rate. So the amount of fat, the amount of energy, the amount of calories that you are burning sitting there just at rest, doing no activity whatsoever except breathing, that is your resting metabolic rate. So T2 comes in and turns that up, meaning your caloric burn without you having to do anything or exercise increases. In addition, activating that white adipose tissue, that's that white squishy fat that we don't want on our bodies. We want to turn that white adipose tissue brown. We want it brown because that brown fat, or BAT, is very thermogenic. It actually improves our insulin sensitivity. It helps us with burning fat. It's filled with mitochondria. That's why it's brown. And that's essentially why everybody's jumping in cold plunges. It's to activate brown adipose tissue because that increases fat burning in the body. And that's what cold water stimulates. So T2 does the same thing. It stimulates it. It also acts like an exercise mimetic. Now, what I mean by that, I don't mean that you don't pick up weights. What I mean by that is, and this is a really interesting story. This is back when I was competing in figure competitions. There was a trainer and he trained the pros. He trained the people that went all the way to the top, got their pro card. They're competing at a professional level. And he trained women. And he said, here's the thing. I don't let my women take T3. Now, a little side note for everybody. If I haven't said this on this podcast before, I'll say it again. Bodybuilders are the OGs of biohacking. We were doing peptides before Ben Greenfield was doing peptides. You know what I mean? Like we were doing stuff to our bodies long before it was in the mainstream with Huberman and Attia talking about it. So back in the day, bodybuilders, like it or not, would take T3 to burn fat to get ready for this show because it was a really quick way to increase your metabolism. But here's the problem, and he addresses this. He says, I don't let my athletes take T3 because they're going to come out the other side with a thyroid problem. And then they're going to be on thyroid hormone the rest of their life. He says, I give them T2 because here's the thing. It does not burn their muscle. So T3, the other issue is that it's burning their precious, hard-earned, busting their ass at the gym muscle. And it's burning fat, but it's burning their muscle too. I mean, this is what we're seeing with the GLPs these days too.
Well, and I want to talk about that, but real quick. So yeah. T3 does, and does reverse T3 burn at the muscle?
No, it doesn't burn muscle, but it's not going to, since your body's in shutdown, you're not going to be building muscle either, because you're in survival mode. Do you need to burn muscle when you're surviving? No. So that's what you have to think about with elevated reverse T3 is what would your body need to do absolutely if it's surviving? Breathe and your heartbeat. Like that's it. I mean, honestly, like filter some waste with the kidneys. You don't need to burn fat. Don't need to grow your hair. But no, T2 does not burn muscle. It spares muscle. And some studies are showing that it activates muscle tissue. So it's actually kind of giving it that little bit of a stimulus. Now you're not going to get like nice shapely arms by taking T2 and not picking up a weight. But it's going to leave your muscle alone and it's only going to burn body fat. So what I've been doing lately, Sarah, is actually dialing back my T3 dose because I really want to improve on my muscle. I've been working really, really hard. Yes, I played around with the GLPs. I lost muscle, so now I'm trying to get it back. So I've been dialing back my T3 dose and supplementing with T2 instead so that, maybe I can protect a little bit more muscle, but still have the proper amount of thyroid hormone.
So the Thyroid Fixer, and it's on Accelerated Health Products. I take it daily. I love it. That is T2. So now as you're trying to build muscle, obviously you're lifting weights with the T2, with the Thyroid Fixer. How much are you taking?
Well, I take now 1 capsule of Thyroid Fixer in the morning. And then I'll take a scoop of my metabolism fixer, which has T2 in it in the afternoon. So I try to break it up with capsule and powder. I get supplement fatigue after a while. But then, so what I'll do with my afternoon dose of T3 is I'll pull out 1/3 of that just to kind of see how I can do that balance.
And have you noticed a difference?
I think I like this arm. I'm kind of imbalanced, but this arm, like even when I'm on these shows, I'm like, okay, there's that little bit of striation going on now, which I didn't have before. I literally felt like someone took a pin and went boop with my muscles and they all went deflate, just deflated. So yeah, I think it is coming back a little bit.
And I wanted to get to Ozempic and those drugs real quick. We only have like 3 minutes, but
okay.
Can you tell me what those drugs are doing with the thyroid hormones? I'm in Newport Beach, Southern California, puts Beverly Hills to shame when we talk about plastic surgery and these weight loss drugs. What I am seeing with my own eyes is people drastically lost a ton of weight.
Yep.
And now the weight's creeping back up and it's not muscle, guys.
Yeah.
So that is what I'm seeing.
Well,
So
and are you also noticing like drawn faces, flat asses, no muscle tone whatsoever? Yeah. Like that's what I'm seeing as well with these women using it who don't need it. So I think the GLPs are an amazing tool for type 2 diabetes, for insulin resistance, for obesity, for people who are carrying around loads of excess weight, which we know is detrimental to health and increases all-cause mortality. All disease starts from being overweight and inflamed. The problem I have with it are the women that need to lose 10 to 15 pounds. And they're using it and they're losing weight drastically, and they're losing their muscle with it. They're losing their facial fat. They look older than they are. And that muscle is super important as we age, just to keep that muscle on to protect all of our vital organs and our skeletal system. That is key. I mean, it's coined the organ of longevity. That is what our muscle is, the organ of longevity. So we can't be burning our muscle in order to just burn fat. That's silly. And that just for aesthetic reasons, come on. So there are better ways to do this. I mean, address your thyroid, address your testosterone, address insulin resistance, get a little bit more control of your food. I mean, yeah, sure. If you need some help, add in some berberine, add in metabolism fixer with suppressant in it. That helps suppress appetite. That's why I always say it's better than Ozempic. But, just do all these other things for God's sake before you jump to the GLPs.
Yeah. I mean, there's the combination of what I've seen people add in: the accelerated iodine, accelerated thyroid fixer, hormone fixer, maybe some progesterone, either in a cream or bioidenticals, and copper. And you and I both have talked about copper, the importance of copper, and also boosting your immune system. Because like we mentioned, if you've got a viral load, your body's going to say, hey, stop the metabolism. We've got to go fight this over here. And that's happening a lot more. The spike protein has really activated a ton of different viruses in our bodies. Epstein-Barr showing up on everybody. Varicella virus is showing up on everyone. I've told my story with that experience. What else? Oh, the herpes viruses, all over scans on everybody. And you're walking around and you feel fine. You don't feel like you're sick. But we've got things going on that we didn't have before. So we are definitely in a new world. And we didn't even really touch on liver, but just real quickly, I mean, the liver is where most of the conversion happens. So if the liver is bombarded by all of these toxins in our water, our air, and our food, you're asking it to do a lot.
Yes.
And it's not meant to do that much. So Amie, I love having you on.
I know.
Such a wealth of knowledge. And I don't carry any supplements that aren't the cutting edge top supplements. And I love your hormone fixer, love your thyroid fixer. I have the SHBG fixer as well that can bind up that SHBG that's taking down the testosterone. And you're fantastic. So thank you for coming on. And everyone, if you're interested in any of those supplements we talked about today, you can find them on my website. If you want to work with Amie, she obviously knows her stuff. Amie, where can they find you?
You can go to dramihornaman.com and you can book a call, and we'll just go over everything that you've tried, all your frustrations, the whole deal. And we'll find a program and a path that's right for you.
And it's not very simple. There's so many pieces to the puzzle on these lab tests that a typical doctor may not see. So I always go to Amie with my questions. So thank you, Amie. And thanks everyone else for tuning in today. If you need my help with your concerns, don't know where to start, you can reach me through the website, sarabantahealth.com. Happy to put together a protocol for you. And join my free group coaching on Telegram. There's no downside. I share daily tips and tools to improve your health, answer your questions. You're with a group of people who are on a similar path as well. And there's more information on the website. Don't forget to follow me on social media at Accelerated Health Products. You can catch this podcast on over 100 platforms, including Spotify, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. Just search Accelerated Health TV and Radio Show. I'm on a mission. I need your help. share my healing message with everyone who's ready to listen. So if you could share this podcast, and like Amie said, most of you out there have thyroid issues, so this is one to share. That would be great. Remember, I'm live every Monday and Tuesday. I post a bonus one on Thursdays. You can use coupon WELCOME10 to try out any of the supplements we talked about. The Acceleradine, Thyroid Fixer, Accelerated Thyroid, Hormone Fixer. They're all there to help with your fat burning, your metabolism, and your energy. A great place to start. Thanks for joining us here, and have a great week.